was a lot simpler, I'll tell you that.
That's what that guy said.
Do you need an intro or anything?
Like, no. Well,
okay.
I guess, yeah, say your name and...
Okay. Are we ready to start?
Yep, go right ahead.
Okay, I'm Dolores Schnoor, and I'm 82 years old today. It's my birthday. I don't feel that old. My mind feels like it did when I was probably in my 20s and 30s, and I'm very healthy, so I'm glad of that. But I started out my life in a farmhouse out in Potawatomi County, rural Carson area. The doctor that came out was from Carson and came out, and I was born at home on the farm, and I, of course, don't remember those early years. But I remember that when we were little kids, the Christmas, we always got a new pair of shoes and a new dress from Grandma because she was a real good seamstress. And then she gave it to us usually the day before the Christmas Eve so that we could wear it to the Christmas Eve program at church. And that was one of the highlights, was always Christmas Eve program at church. And when I was older one year, my grandfather, who lived with us, he was a widower, and he lived with us, and he took me and my brother and sister, the older children, to the church for the program. The rest of them stayed home because it was blizzarding really long that night. And so he took us in his, he had some kind of a coupe, but I don't know if it was a Chevy or Ford or what it was. And it was snowing when we came home, but I remember doing that. We also had a lot of family gatherings, and we always had goose. That was the big thing we had at Thanksgiving time. We had a goose to eat, and all the relatives got together then. I think probably, what else do I remember from... I lived on a farm. We had a whole row of evergreen trees. In the summertime, I used to not want to do too much, so I'd get me a book, and I'd go hide in those evergreen trees. And I'd read my book, and gee, they had a hard time finding me. But I enjoyed reading, and I still do. When I started to school, I lived a mile, almost 2 miles, a mile and 3/4 from the school. So my grandfather would walk almost to the school with me, where he could see that I could get the rest of the way, and then I'd walk that way by myself. And at night, there were a lot of kids to walk with that had to walk that 1 mile, and then the last half a mile, so I had to walk by myself, and he'd meet me there at the corner, walk home with me. So he was kind of special to me always, and probably I was special to him because I was the oldest grandchild that lived with him. Then when I got older, we did live through the Depression, but we didn't realize it. We had plenty of meat, and we grew all our vegetables. We had a big potato patch and lots of vegetables. Grandpa had fruit trees and grapes and all that kind of thing, and we grew all that. We had a cave. Actually, it was part of the basement, but it was for the root crops. And we had big bin of potatoes. And it used to be my job to go get the potatoes to peel. And I would always pick out the big ones. And my mother thought I should pick all kinds. And my grandmother says, well, I don't see why it makes any difference. There'll always be the biggest ones left. But we did have a good life. I had 2 brothers and 5 sisters, and my youngest sister was a lot younger than I was. So my oldest brother thought she always got kind of favored because by the time she came along was after the war, and my dad and mom could afford things like a birthstone ring, and he says, heck, I had to take a horseshoe and bend it for my ring. He didn't like that very well. But it was fun time. We all had fun. The kids were fun. We always had somebody to play with, but it was different. We used to go play house, or we played out we liked to play in the corn crib, or someplace like that. We had our little playhouses out there. But we had chickens. We had to help with the garden. We had to clean every Saturday. We cleaned, and that was a big thing we had to do. Let me see. As I grew up, I went to the little country school, and then when I got to high school age, I had to walk 1.5 miles to catch the bus to go to high school.
Was that a one-room schoolhouse you went to?
Yeah. And when I graduated from high school, I went to college for a summer, and then I taught in the same one-room school where I went. I became a teacher there, and I taught 8th grades in that school, and I enjoyed them because the little kids learned from the big kids, from hearing what was going on, and that was fun. I liked that. You get attached to those kids, and today when I see them, they still know who I am and talk to me. I only taught there a couple of years, and then at that time it was the wartime. Before then, you had to be a single woman. You couldn't teach after you were married. But at that time was wartime, and my boyfriend got drafted into the service. He chose to go to the Navy, and while he was gone, I taught school in a little country school there, and wrote letters, and he'd get them, and so would I guess, in bunches. One time you'd get 3 or 4 letters. Well, at that time, there was a time when the mailman couldn't get over the hill, so somebody else, one of the neighbors, would bring the mail along with them or something. And there was a guy that used to like to tease me. He'd bring me a letter, and he said, "That's all there is today." And then he'd wait a half an hour, and he'd come on, and he'd say, "Oh, I forgot, I had another letter from him." And I got letters from him all that time while he was in service. He was in the Occupational Army in Japan, and it was winter there. He went over, and then he brought back a Japanese submarine to Hawaii, and they took it out in the ocean and sank it. And it was just something to get rid of. He did bring home a couple of periscope and a couple of things from that sub that as a relic from World War II. During World War II, though, it was really hard to get machinery. They was just starting to make corn pickers and combines and things like that. And up until that time, we'd get 2 weeks off of school every fall to help pick corn. And we were out there picking the corn, and my dad had tried to get a combine to pick or corn pickers, what he called it. And it was drawn by tractor, but it went down the rows and picked the corn in the ears. And we were still out there, and one day the call came, he got his corn picker. We throwed everything on our wagon, and we went to the house, and he went and got his corn picker. We didn't have to pick no more corn. But that was bad then. When you went out, it was frosty in the morning. You had to have on gloves to pick the corn with, and boots. And you got soaking wet from the frost. It wasn't very fun. But we all helped with it. And then, like I said, they gave you 2 weeks off of school. They closed school at that time. So all the kids could go help pick the corn. When the war was over, they got more modern tractors and things. But all during the war, they rationed all the gasoline. We had stamps to get sugar, and you could only use get so many pounds of sugar per person per family. But the gasoline was pretty good for farmers because it depended on how many tractors and machinery they had. So in school at that time, when I was a senior, a lot of the kids in town, they couldn't get a car, they couldn't go anywhere. These boys on the farm, they just sneaked some gas out of their dad's gas tank. And there was one kid in our class, if we wanted to go somewhere, we just call Delmer and say, Delmer, we need to go somewhere. Okay, I'll take you. He'd get gas out of his gas tank. And kids, the boys in town all thought that was pretty good to have him for a friend. Let me see, what else can I remember from that time? When my husband got back from the service, then we were married and we lived on the farm too. But it was still, you could get more tractors and things there. And being in service, the servicemen got first chance at the new machinery. So he got put in his name. My dad said, put in your name for the new tractor. And so he did, and he got the word that yes, he could get a new tractor. And so he got the new tractor, and he went to Macedonia and got the John Deere tractor from down there, and that was really a special deal because you couldn't get very much machinery at that time. I don't know the other war stories. There was a lot of them, but a lot of them, for instance, the Pearl Harbor, we were all sitting around listening to that. When that happened, it was such a shock to everybody, and that shortly after that's when they started drafting all the guys to go. Some of them got deferments if they were the only son left at home to farm. They got deferments for that, but most of them had to.
If their other brothers had gotten drafted already.
Something like that. So that was about. Then after I was married, we lived on a farm and we had all
the children.
We started out with horses, though.
Oh yeah.
We had a team of horses to start out with, and a couple of cows, and we milked and had all the milk and cream and butter, eggs, and all that kind of stuff. Most farms did then, and during the wartime, that was what kept the farmers going. And I know that I had an aunt in town during the Depression who said, "Oh, you're so lucky, you've got all the meat and vegetables." She said, "All I ever get to eat is beans and spaghetti and rice." And my mom thought, "Oh, it would be so nice to have a bowl of spaghetti sometime." They could buy that. But, one year during the Depression, our family, the large family, drew names, and she had a name to draw to give to somebody in the family, and she said, "Well, the only thing I had to give them was some wheat from our bin that I cleaned and washed, and we used that as a cereal, and we cooked it, and we did grind it sometimes and made a cereal." And she even made a cereal like grape nuts that she cooked in the oven out of her wheat. And that was fun, something different once in a while that you could have. We shucked corn by hand and we put it in a bin, and I know we used to have oats too, and that was something we had to help with, was sowing the oats. And it was about this time of year when you sowed your oats, and you had to go out, and many times it was windy, or right after you got it done, you had a storm like we got today with snow all covering up all that oats. One year we did that, and that was probably one of the years we had one of the better crops we ever had.
Really?
They said that snow has nitrogen in it, and that gave the boost to the crops to grow. So.
What about when your grandpa lived with you? Did he come over from Germany, or?
My grandfather came from Germany when he was 16 years old with his parents, but he had two brothers that lived here at the time, and his parents and he and 3 other brothers came over, and when they got here, they stayed with some relatives, and within 2 weeks after he got here, his parents both died from the fever.
Oh, really?
Both of them. So his older brother, who lived here, took the 3 younger brothers in and started farming with them. But he went and lived with another farmer who had come from Germany also and worked for him. And then later he married a lady from the trainer community, and they farmed at their home place. And then she had died when my father was about 7 years old, and so he was a widower. And so when my dad was the youngest son, when he got married, his wife just came to live with them. But by the time I really remember, my grandfather didn't help with the farming. He had a flower garden and flower beds all over the yard, and that was his hobby. And I remember one summer he went to visit his brother in Montana, and he gathered rocks all over Yellowstone and everything. When he got back, he made a great big rock pile in our yard with all the rocks in it. But he always talked about, when he was in Germany, he used to swim in the North River, and then we came through Ellis Island and came on a train to Iowa and to the Potawatomi area, the trainer area was where he came to. And of course that's where I grew up, the trainer in Carson area. And now I live in Council Bluffs.
Did your parents ever take you on vacation or anything? Or did...
I don't remember that we ever went on a vacation.
Oh, yeah.
We had cows, we had hogs, we had gardens, we had chickens. We didn't get vacations then.
You had to stay home.
They had to take care of all those things. I didn't have a vacation till I'd been married probably, 4 or 5 years. And then I got to go to Lake Okoboji and go fishing. After I'd been married, I don't know, 20 years or 30 maybe.
More
than that maybe. Then we finally did go on vacation, but that was a long time. After our family got mostly grown, except for my youngest daughter, who was still home. We didn't get vacations because we were farmers. I don't think people could do that way now. They need their vacation.
Yeah.
So, but we enjoyed our farm life. That was fun. But the part that during the war and even during that early time, the big thing was cooking for the men. When we had a group of men come to thrash or shell corn or help with something like that, we didn't give them just one meal. We gave them morning lunch, noon big meal, afternoon lunch, and sometimes even supper if they worked really late. So the poor women had just as big a job as the men. And I remember not just very long ago, I was talking to one of our neighbor ladies, and she said she had lost her mother, and she was 15 at the time, and she said she don't know what she'd have done if it hadn't been for my mother coming over and helping her decide what to cook for the thrashers every day. And her father came in and they decided what to get out and what to cook, and she said if my mother hadn't come over and helped her with that. And that was the thing they did at those times. All the ladies in the neighborhood would go help the other ladies and cook for the thrashers. They cooked them all those meals. And they kind of got together and they decided, well, if I have meatloaf, then you can have roast, and maybe you can have chicken. And they would plan it out so they didn't all have the same thing every day. But they had to have cakes, and they had to have pies, and they had to have sandwiches. And boy, those men came in and they ate. But the funniest thing happened one time. I was helping my mother-in-law. I don't think I was even married then. But I was helping her cook for men. And I put salt in. I had to salt potatoes. And I put too much in. Well, potatoes don't take up salt very bad, so the potatoes were fine. But she used the potato water to make her gravy. And that gravy was so salty they could hardly eat it. And we didn't know it because we hadn't tasted it. So there were funny things that weren't funny at the time. But that happened, and I'll never forget that I put too much salt on those potatoes. And it was my mother-in-law. So that wasn't funny. But we managed. So, and they always had big get-togethers in each community. For instance, when I taught school, every 6 weeks or so, they expected to have a party at that school. And I didn't have to furnish anything, but I had to figure out when to have it. And sometimes you had a program with it, and sometimes it was just a potluck supper or something like that. But they all got together, and that's really where my husband and I got together at, was at those parties.
Oh, yeah?
Is that like the weekend thing to do?
They usually had those on Friday night.
Yeah. Was that when you were like out of college, right after college?
Yeah, well, they had them before that already. They had them when I was at school already.
Oh, yeah.
But all through school, they used to have, that neighborhood always had potlucks and parties every 6 weeks or so, got together. And so it was fun for them. They just expected to have it.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they played cards, or they had some kind of entertainment there.
When you were in high school, like, did you go out on weekends much, or did you?
No.
Did you stay home?
Because we didn't. It was during the war. We didn't have gas.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't go very often.
Yeah.
One big trip to Omaha once a year was something great.
Oh, yeah.
When I was in high school, we did have field trips once in a while, probably once a year, maybe twice. We went to Omaha to Exarban one year, and we went down to, I think it was the apple orchard down at Nebraska City. We went down there once, and that's about as far as I ever got to go. I didn't get to go to many basketball games or anything like that either, because I lived far enough away and I didn't have a way, so I didn't belong to any of that kind of stuff. Didn't get to participate in anything like that. Some of my other friends did, but we didn't get to, because I was the oldest. If I'd have been the youngest, I'd have had a way with my older brothers probably, but I didn't learn to drive a car till my kids were learning when they were 16. So I was a late car driver. I didn't get my license, and I was scared to death when I did get it. Didn't pass it first time. Had to wait till second time. So it was, but it was a fun life. I enjoyed it all. And someone asked me once, what part of your life did you like? And I said, well, really, I enjoyed every part of it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it when I was a kid. I enjoyed it when I was in school. And I enjoyed it when I had my kids. But I'm enjoying my life now, too, because I go to the senior center in Council Bluffs, and I go swimming there sometimes, and I go to parties there and carts, and I enjoy it. But when we had our kids in the 40s, 50s, we couldn't go on vacations. We couldn't go to the fast food place and have something to eat. We couldn't go to movies. But what we did was a group of our neighbors would get together and go together, and we played cards. And we had quite the card parties, because we had probably, each of us had between 4 and 6 kids, and there were more kids at that party than there were grown-ups. And the kids sort of got away with everything. They just went to another room and had a ball, and here we were busy playing cards and having our own fun. And I think my kids tell stories about some of the things they did that were probably kind of naughty.
A little bit.
So, but I don't know. That was our biggest entertainment, was getting together and playing cards with our friends and neighbors. Sometimes we went to school things, a play maybe, or a program or something like that.
How many kids were in your class?
In my high school class?
Yeah.
14.
14.
There were 7 boys and 7 girls. And we did get to go clear to Council Bluffs to the Chieftain Hotel for our prom.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We didn't have it at school.
Wow.
So,
Pretty cool.
But we had a meal at the hotel. It was
yeah.
furnished there. I remember that. But we got to go in and decorate it. When we were juniors, we decorated it for the seniors. That was a special thing to get to go in there. Of course, I always had to find a ride because I didn't drive and I didn't have any way to go. So I spent a lot of time staying with a couple of my friends, and that I enjoyed that too.
Yeah. All right. Is that it?
Can you think of anything else you need to ask me
can't.
about?
Mm-mm.
I can probably think of something else later, but I can't right now.
All right.